All right, welcome everybody
Hello.
to Coffee with the Missionary Facebook Live here. So excited for a special live video tonight with a panel discussion. So we have some of our area directors. LAC region is broken up into areas, and so these are experienced veteran missionaries, and we're just so excited to hear their wisdom, hear their perspective. And first of all, we want to encourage you, if you're watching this live or if you're going to be tuning in a little bit, please comment. Let us know you're watching. Please ask questions. And we want to interact with you. We want this to be a space where you can ask questions about missions, about what it means to be called. Welcome to our first viewer. We invite you to comment and to let us know where you're watching from. And today we have a special live video with all of our area directors.
Well,
with some of them.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. So our first one guest we have is David Speer. So David, welcome.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for coming on with us.
Oh yeah, glad to be here.
So, Dave, introduce yourself, your family, and what area you're directing, and a beautiful place to visit in your area.
Okay. Well, David Speer, my wife is Kristen. We have two kids, Taylor and Hudson, and Taylor's 26 and Hudson, I think, is 22. I got two grandkids, so that's kind of it on the family. We're area directors in the Caribbean. And I don't know if there's really a not great place to visit in the Caribbean. It's beautiful in many places, in a lot of beach and that kind of thing. But when you get to the areas where people really live, it doesn't look anything like the postcard.
Wow. Well, we look forward to hearing more of your wisdom. If you're just joining us, we are having a special live video with area directors of the different areas of the Latin American region. We just spoke with Dave Speer, and now we're going to introduce our second guest that we have with us tonight. And this is...
My turn. This is Dave and Margot Woodworth. Thank you guys so much for being on here with us.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So why don't you tell our viewers where you guys are directing and some fun things about your country, about your family.
You go ahead.
Hey, what a great privilege. So we work in Colombia, but we are over the Andean area. That's Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia.
Oh, wow. That's a lot. Awesome.
And we have three boys.
Yeah.
We think it's 28?
Yeah.
Davis, 26. Marcus,
Almost 26.
almost 26. and 24. Lucas.
Good job, hon.
Yeah.
If any of them are watching, you did them proud.
Right? At least you know you have three boys.
And two wonderful daughter-in-laws as well.
Awesome.
Rebecca and Kara.
So single ladies, if you're watching, should they stay tuned for what's happening with the third one, or?
He's kind of spoken for.
All right. That's good. I'm just looking out for my friends, that's all. And then what's a part of your area, the Andean region that, maybe people don't know about or something,
that people don't know about.
Or like a beautiful place to visit.
Or a place.
A place to go visit? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we live in the city of Armenia, Colombia, and it is coffee region. It is the second most visited tourist destination for Colombia.
Wow.
They have turned coffee farms into bed and breakfast, and people come with their families, hang out, and get to do different things in the coffee region. It is spectacular.
Cool.
Wow. That's actually not why we went there. Was it so beautiful? We actually went for the coffee.
Yes. No. The Lord said, please go to a coffee. And I said, amen. and
Right.
to finish. So
I'd support that.
yes.
That's amazing. Well, thank you guys for you being with us. We look forward to hearing some of your wisdom, and we're going to bring David Speer back on here, and we're excited to talk with you guys. And really, we're gonna ask some questions. Let me rearrange this. So our first question that we have, and we'll get to some questions from Instagram a little later on. But let me pull up this question so I can put it on the screen.
Hold on a second. For anybody that's just logging on or viewing, we just want to let you guys know we're doing a special panel tonight with some area directors from Latin America and Caribbean. So we have Dave Speer, who's in Caribbean area. We have Dave and Margot Woodworth, who are in the Andean region. So if you guys have any questions that pertain more to leadership or just they are super veteran missionaries, just comment below. Tell us where you're commenting from and any questions you have.
All right. So this question is from Instagram. And they asked this: when did you first feel called to be a missionary? Who wants to take a stab at it?
Tocayo.
I'll go.
All right, David.
I first felt called to be a missionary when I was at Central Bible College, and I was in probably the second semester of Bible college when I first felt called to be a missionary.
Wow.
And what did that process look like for you? Like, how did that happen?
Well, I was in that introduction to missions class, and the instructor had taken a trip to Mexico City that year, and he started to talk about Mexico City, and I was sitting a few rows back, and I just lost it. Was very emotional, crying. I had no idea what was happening.
Wow.
But I do remember the third or the fourth time that happened to me, not in one day, but throughout the weeks, in that semester. I remember saying, God, I don't know what you're doing, but if you want me to go, you just have to tell me. And about 6 weeks into that semester, there was a time after every Friday we had a missions emphasis. And there was a time after that chapel service when it was just quiet, and I was praying and just heard the Lord speak to me and say, David, I want you to be a missionary for me to Mexico City. And that's how it happened.
Wow. I wish it was all that easy. That's crazy.
But it wasn't.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I fought it for a long time. So
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. If you're just joining us, we're talking with our area directors, Dave Speer from the Caribbean and Dave and Margot Woodworth from the Andean region of South America. Please comment or ask a question in the comment section. This is a chance for you to get some wisdom from these veteran, experienced missionaries. So, Dave and Margot, when did you first feel called to be a missionary?
Okay. In my case, I am a son of a missionary. My parents were missionaries for 54 years.
Wow.
In Cuba, in Colombia, and in Mexico. So I have the wonderful opportunity of seeing firsthand what my mom and dad did, and we did it together as a family.
Yeah.
So we highly value all the family participating in missionary endeavors.
Yeah.
So that laid the foundation. And then I also, when I was in the States finishing high school and into college at Vanguard University, I belonged to a great church, a great missions church, Newport Mesa Church, that every summer went on missions trips. And so I got more motivated and excited about doing ministry outside the U.S. And then the last key component in my life was I spent a summer, my junior year in college, working with Charles and Linda Stewart in Bogota, and absolutely loved it. And they gave me opportunity to help them in different types of ministry. And I think that was the clincher to finally say, okay, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
That's cool.
And for you, Margot, was it similar?
No, very different. But so I think it was a lot from a church that we started. When we started attending as a family an Assemblies of God church when I was in grade school, was very missions minded. That church in Santa Barbara, in California, Pastor Herman Graham's, always had missionaries come and share, and I was just captivated. So it drew my interest. And the other thing was that my parents always supported missionaries, housed missionaries in our home. And so I had that very positive contact with missionaries. But I didn't know I personally was called. It was something I thought would be wonderful to do, but I didn't know. But when I went to Southern California College at that time, then became Vanguard University, it was during that time I took my first missions class, and it just like sparked something in me. This is something that actually I could do. Huh. And I just felt that growing sense that that was the direction that God was calling me in my own life.
Wow. It's amazing. I love how different, I mean, similar, but different all of your stories were. I mean, but a lot of it had to do, with, you, Dave, laying the foundation, but with other Dave, Dave Speer, like out of nowhere, it seemed like this just came, and it's like God is just able to use all of these, whether it's the laying the foundation that you didn't even realize that was going to be you someday, or you always want to, like, I don't know, it's just neat how God, like, I feel like sometimes we can be in our circumstances and think, well, there's no way because I didn't grow up a missionary kid, so I can't be a missionary. And it's like, well, that worked for this. I don't know. It's just neat how God uses your life circumstances and does it. Yeah,
it is so cool. And Dave Woodworth, I kind of had a follow-up question for you. And if you're just joining us, we are talking with area directors from the LAC region. We have David Speer, who is the area director over the Caribbean, David and Margot Woodworth, who are over the Andean area of South America. But Dave Woodworth, you had mentioned that when you grew up in a missionary family, that missions was a whole family thing. And I just wanted to follow up with that. How did your parents like allow you as children to take ownership of that?
Yeah.
Well, as a kid, you're responsible for your schooling. So you spend most of your time studying and going to school, but activities out of school were involved where we helped out teaching Sunday school. We helped out playing instruments in the church service. We were part of the youth group. We ventured and accompanied my dad. I think the best thing that a missionary parent can do is have your children accompany you on trips into the jungle, trips up to the mountains, doing, weekend activities and letting the kids get a feel for what happens, not just at school, but in ministry in general. Yeah. It's a very valuable experience. And so I felt like I'm not a suitcase of my parents. I am a missionary just as much as my parents were. And that was key. And you want to transmit that to the whole family because it's the whole family that has to learn the language. It's the whole family that has to make the adjustment. But even with children, many of the contact points for future ministry happens through the children in the school. So they are a key door opener, and usually the kids are the ones that learn the language the quickest and adjust faster than the parents do. So they're a valuable part of missionary work.
Yeah. Wow. So now for both of you guys, for Dave and Margot and then Dave Speer, how old were your kids when you went on the field?
I think ours were like 6 and 10 or 6 and maybe it was 11 and 7, something like that.
Okay. So old enough to know what was happening, for sure. Yeah. And
go ahead.
No, yeah. What about you guys?
So in our case, we left with a 2-year-old and one on the way.
Okay.
We went to Costa Rica first to language school, although David grew up speaking Spanish his whole life, but I was still learning. Well, we're all still learning. And so our second son, Marcus, was born in Costa Rica. And then we got to Colombia, and less than 2 years after Marcus was born, Lucas was born in Colombia. So we left with our North American son that was North American born son, 2 years old, picked up a Central American one on the way down, and then had a South American one.
That's awesome. So pretty vast differences. That's all they really knew was growing up on the field. And then, you know, Taylor and Hudson had to make some serious life changes. Yeah.
Right.
So I would have so many more questions, but we actually have other ones planned and Noah's directing me. So I'm going to ask the next one that's written down. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that, you know, either pastors or families have of missionaries? We just touch your nose, raise your hand if you have an idea, or Margot.
Well, we were at a service once and kind of got an idea because with 3 boys 2 years apart, there was a lot of activity, a lot of energy.
Yep.
So we had a particularly challenging service in a church, and people came up to us afterwards and thanked us. And they said, "Oh, we're so glad to see that missionary families are normal." So I think people think that sometimes missionary families we've got it all together or something.
Sure.
We are just normal people.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool.
Right. I think I was going to say something very similar, just that we're normal people. And I think that God calls everybody to a life of obedience. And some of us he calls to obey him in the United States, and some of us he calls to other areas of the world. And I think sometimes just in the heart to try to raise awareness for missions, that missionaries are treated differently and seen in a different light. That's really not true. We're just normal people who love God and want to obey him. That's it.
Yeah.
And kind of following up on that a little bit, because, you know, I know that I've said that to people, and I've tried to get across the message that missionaries are normal people, but sometimes there's a wall in people's minds. So could you explain a few areas what you mean by we're normal people?
We eat 3 times a day. We shower. We have Facebook.
Wait,
No.
are you saying that missionaries have to actually eat food?
They don't fast all day long.
That's also probably one of the misconceptions, is that missionaries are going through very difficult times, don't have anything, are suffering, and more so it's just that, and that we live in very primitive, difficult circumstances. Some may live in those situations and they love it, but most of us live in metropolitan cities and work with a great church. So that's one of the things is, you know, there's such a conception of like the African queen being out in such a remote area and suffering because there's just no response. And that's not true in our area.
Yeah.
More like a lot of people are working in training and facilitating others who may be going out to those areas, or they're going for time periods out in those areas. But I'd say most are not sleeping every night in a hammock, but maybe that would be a smaller number that would do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of the ways that that people have struggled with the idea of normal is just such a funny word anyway, because it means so many different things. But on the scale of what we're talking about, just that you guys are normal people that have the same struggles as anybody else. Never mind necessarily what you're doing or where you're living or the food you're eating. The fact of the matter is that we're all living on this side of heaven and just because you're a missionary doesn't make you perfect. And I think to me that the things that I've heard people talk about are just this assumption that you're the super spiritual authority on everything. And you're like, I'm still learning.
Well,
And
area
I think-
directors have super spiritual authority, but the rest of the missionaries not. No, I'm just kidding. That was
I was waiting for something. But so we got a comment. You want to read it? I can't see.
Yes, from Miss Asensio, it says, "Love you, Woodworth family."
Gracias.
She's awesome. There's a PK. That's a pastor's
Love you
kid.
back.
Oh, that's awesome.
Guayaquil.
Ecuador.
I wanted to give Dave Speer a chance. Was there anything you wanted to add on the normalcy of missionaries?
I don't know. I had moved past it, so I had nothing
Okay.
on the top of my head at the moment.
Oh, good.
Wonderful. Well, another question, and if you're just joining us, we're talking with a few of our area directors in the LAC community. We have David Speer and his wife Kristen are area directors of the Caribbean area, and then we have Dave and Margot Woodworth. They're area directors of the Andean region of South America. And they're bringing their wisdom, their experience of missions, their stories. And so even if you're just watching this on a replay, go back and watch the first 10 minutes, second 10 minutes. Great answers so far. But we want to encourage you, if you're watching, please comment, ask a question. They're here for you and to lend their wisdom on your questions and things that you have. So one question that may come up a lot, and so I want to get your feedback on, is what are some cultural adjustments that specifically that LAC missionaries have to make? Cultural adjustments that LAC missionaries have to make.
And we understand that's a broad question because even every country has different things, but in general.
I would offer that you would have to adjust to everything moving at a slower pace. Everything. So you wait in lines a lot longer. Everything that is automated is no longer automated. Traffic moves at a snail's pace. They're very, some places have fast food, so you're cooking all of your food. Just a lot more time is involved. The fast pace of life in the United States slows down in some places. Not everywhere is like that. But I think one thing that you could say as an adjustment is that life has to slow down. Otherwise, you run people over.
Okay.
Is that is that experience talking there? Or?
Oh yeah.
And you were in Mexico City for a while.
Right, one of the
Before
largest
you guys
cities
were-
in the world, and life slowed way down when we were in
Right.
Mexico City, just because
Which is crazy.
that was the pace
It's
of
a hustle and bustle.
right.
Yeah. What about you guys?
One thing that I notice is sometimes difficult for people from the U.S. It really depends on the person, but is this need for privacy in a culture that tends to be a little bit more focused on individuals and individual needs, and then to go into a culture that is wonderfully group oriented. Sometimes is a challenge.
Sure.
So some people feel that their sense of privacy is somewhat invaded. But what I would say for that is embrace it.
Yeah.
Never go back. That sense of group is wonderful. When you're sick, they don't want you to be, it may be different in different countries, okay?
Right.
But in some places, people don't want you to be alone. But I've heard people from the US, when I'm sick, I don't want anybody nearby. So I would say that if you are a very private person, start thinking about that if you feel like you're called to the field, and be willing to embrace just people being in your life.
It's really good advice. Yeah.
That is. I want to quick give some time. We have 3 questions that were asked. One from Joe Knapp. Joe, thank you for your question. Also, we have one from Bill McClure too. But Joe asks, said maybe you all already addressed this, but can you explain the role of area directors and why team is important in missions? Thank you, Joe, for an excellent question.
Tocayo, that's yours.
Joe, great question. And Joe's coming, wanting to work in Ecuador. So yes, area directors, what is their role? To complicate life as much as possible for me. And just take advantage of everyone's hosptality. That's basically my goal and dream.
Well, moving on. Next question.
So really,
Weird. Where did they go?
I think the role of the area director works in 3 different areas. One is the administrative responsibility to help missionaries figure out budgets, figure out ministry, coordinate travel and ministry opportunities. To sum it up, there's much more in that, but there's an administrative aspect to it, which involves a lot of email correspondence. 2 is vision casting. Where do we need missionaries? What are the projects towards the future? What should we focus on as a missionary body in our area? Unreached people groups, university ministry, church planning, leadership training. And so we buffer, we kind of like, not buffer, but we are the bridge with the national church as to where we should send missionaries and where we need more missionaries.
Okay.
And then 3rd is the pastoral care. We try and make sure that there is a group of missionaries under local supervision of a missionary leader and develop team. I think more and more we are getting away from a Lone Ranger missionary mentality, and we're going with the focus of team support, team help. There are some areas that are difficult and we need to support one another. We need a team to set up, working in unreached people groups up in the mountains in Peru, up in the mountains in Bolivia. We need to set up a team and have missionaries and encourage and help one another. They may be doing different things, but it's more and more coming together, praying for one another, supporting one another in projects and with construction and with training, discipleship, church planning. And so the area directors want to make sure that there is good member care taking place for the missionaries in our area as well.
Right.
Very good way of answering that, I think. I'm not an area director, but it sounds good to me.
Yeah, Dave Speer, anything to add on that?
I think he did a great job.
So, Dave Speer, how long have you been area director for?
I've only been an area director since April. That's why I said.
I just want to let people know that's why he's staying quiet. But still,
No.
Yeah. How is it going so far for you, though? Good. Oh, we lost Dave. We liked his answer. We didn't cut him off. Sorry, Dave.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. A team is very important. That's really all I wanted to say.
Yeah,
Right.
Awesome. And we have some comments here. I think Kim understood, said not a fair question for David Speer.
Why is that, Kim?
I want to give a shout out to David Dominguez. He says, bendiciones de Philadelphia.
Tocayo.
Says, love seeing missions moving forward from the U.S. to around the world. Philadelphia, close to us. We're in New Jersey, right across the water there. And then Bill McClure had a question for David Speer. He said, and not putting you on the spot or anything, what's your favorite island or country in the Caribbean area?
Ooh.
So we'll start with
You're
that
about to
one.
get in trouble if you say
David.
the wrong answer.
Well, it's pretty easy. It's Cuba.
Cuba.
Ooh,
Wow.
yeah.
And why?
Because that's where I spent the most time in the Caribbean.
Awesome. And Bill asked for the Woodworths, what happened to Colombia in the World Cup?
Womp womp.
We didn't have enough budget to pay off the referees, so we only could do so much. And but Colombia's got a great team, and so
Jaime Rodriguez.
James Rodriguez, Falcao, Conrado.
Sí.
We have a
Robert Peter.
good group, and Colombia's been able to qualify for the World Cup for several World Cups in a row, which is awesome. So
Something the U.S. has not been able to do.
yes, and no, we will set aside our comments on that, and we'll just.
Got a comment.
We have a comment here from Francisco Javier Castillo Guerra. Says Colombia got cheated by U.S. referee.
Throwing stones.
Muy cierto, Francisco, muy cierto. ¿Qué se puede hacer? Más se perdió en el diluvio.
I'm just laughing. I have no idea what you're saying.
Oh,
we have some idea. Don't
idea.
count yourself out.
but actually, that's probably another adjustment that people need to make when they come to our region. Soccer is life, and so.
And baseball in some areas, right, David Speer?
That's right. Cuba, Dominican Republic, many other areas.
Whole Caribbean coast.
Cricket is another big one in many areas of the Caribbean.
But
Wow.
basically, I suggest all missionaries to pick a favorite team in each division. And I suggest Barcelona in Spain, be a Barça team. I suggest River Plate in Argentina. And I suggest, Deportes Quindío in Colombia's in second division. So they're just,
Pushing agendas over here.
Las Chivas de Guadalajara in Mexico. So you have to, those are the teams that you have to choose.
Man,
Ooh, I'm more of a Pumas guy.
Across the board, I'm just saying.
This we've gotten woefully off track.
Right.
It's cultural adjustment. I mean, you have to adjust and go with it.
And for us, we have to adjust to you throwing teams in our faces.
Yes,
So.
and go to a soccer game and just don't wear
I would agree with that.
team jersey playing that day. It's better just to go neutral colors.
Margot.
Yeah, if you don't like soccer, don't tell anyone. Just learn to love it because enjoy
I just have to start with learning to love sports, period.
Yes.
Let's work on the general category, but I can share like it's no one's business. Just tell me what color and I'm good. So kind of switching topics a little bit. Nico Musacchio has a great question. What are the spiritual climates of your area? And depending on how into soccer you are, this could totally be relatable. So
I'll let Tocayo answer first.
all right, hold on. Time out real quick. Because we just learned this like a year and a half ago. For anyone that's watching, Tocayo means the person with the same name as you in Spanish. It's like your twin. So go ahead, David Speer.
It has the same characteristic as you. Like Noah and I share, less hair on top of it.
We're getting there.
Yeah. Well, and David,
to be there.
when you get there, you'll be doble tocayo. And then But anyway, the spiritual climate, I think, it varies by country. And, there are some countries like Cuba. Not sure I should be putting this out. But the spiritual climate there is very fervent. God has done amazing things in that country, and churches continue to be planted at a rapid pace. There are other countries, I won't name any more names, but there are other countries that are maybe stalled, and there are definitely places where there is a lot of darkness, a lot of witchcraft and Santeria, different things, where the enemy is actually worshipped, dark areas, but very thankful to be somebody who is a carrier of light, and that we carry light into those dark places. And it's really incredible to see the way that the church advances in spite of all the darkness that surrounds it at times.
Amen. Yeah.
I would say with the Andean area, we are so privileged to work with strong national churches that have a vision for planting churches. But I would also say, again, like David said, there are these pockets, these areas where there are still a number of just completely unreached people groups, for example, or there are blind spots. One of the blind spots might be university ministry in some areas, and that is taking on now. It's growing in our countries, but in the past was difficult. Yeah. But what we're seeing is there's a hunger. I'm just speaking overall, and David might have something different to say, but we see people are hungry, not for traditional religion. They are hungry for something more personal, a personal relationship with God. And so they're open to spiritual things. And so it's a great climate to work in. And one more thing I would say is some of the unreached people groups, once they find out that there are believers and people who teach about the gospel, they're asking, come to our village, come to our community. So it's a really exciting time, but it's a challenge as well.
Sure.
Yeah. We had that happen, I think it was last week or the week before last. One of our great missionaries working, it was in Suriname, and was in an Amerindian village. And God has really done amazing things in this village. Well, a whole busload of Indians from another village came and asked them and sat down with them and said, would you please come to our village and plant a church here and come and bring God to us, bring the gospel to us.
That's
so
amazing.
I mean, it's just incredible to see the hunger.
It's amazing.
Wow. That's so awesome.
I have a kind of follow-up question. Dave, did you want to say something too?
Please,
Yeah, go for it.
I took a breath. I would say, and all the missionaries in our Andean area probably, very much agree with me. There is no better day to do ministry and missionary work than today. Mm-hmm. We have more opportunities than ever before to go into new towns, new communities, new neighborhoods, and share the gospel of Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. And we don't know how long this opportunity will last. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like we have this window of opportunity, and if we don't do something now, we may miss the chance of an incredible harvest in our region, in the Andean area. Yeah. And so we have, our missionaries work very hard. They are doing an incredible job. But the whole focus is our missionaries have so many open doors that the biggest difficulty for our missionaries is to decide which one to do. They could be spread so thin in getting involved in so many areas of ministry that it's difficult. And it's hard to communicate this, but it's like every time you have a conversation, it will lead to spiritual things. And you can pray with people, you can encourage people. People are reaching out. As Margot said, they are tired of their traditional background. They are looking for a personal relationship with God. They are looking for a community that believes in them, that practices what they preach. And we are just seeing opportunities, and always the biggest challenge is how can we meet all these opportunities with the personnel we have.
Wow.
So it sounds like you guys need more missionaries.
Definitely.
Put that plug in there. Just saying.
Amen. And you know, Mel and I were headed to Oaxaca, Mexico, southern Mexico, and just this past weekend I had an opportunity to spend the weekend with missionary Ephraim Figueroa down there. And we went to a village that is on an unreached people groups list. And we got to go with a Mexican couple that is maybe sensing God wants to move them there. We got to go with a Mexican mission leader whose heart was burning once he found out about unreached people groups in his backyard. But, you know, for me, it took us 6 hours to go way up in this village. And for the first time in my life, even though we're already missionaries, already there, first time in my life, I realized what it meant to not have access to the gospel.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind. And the thing is, there's hundreds of those villages, whether they're on a list or not, hundreds of those villages just in the state of Oaxaca, just in Mexico, let alone all around these spots in Latin America. But so exciting to hear the reports from the Andean area and these other areas that people are hungry and they're asking for it. And what struck me was that in the U.S., we don't understand what it's like for people to desire something and not have access to it.
Yeah.
But we don't know what that means. That doesn't make sense. We don't believe it. We're like, no, you have access. No, they don't have access. They're hungry and they just need someone to tell them. So, the Lord. So we have Kimberly. What's that?
Nothing.
We have Kimberly Chacon. Sorry if I'm spelling this or saying that wrong, but Kimberly, she said, I've always had this calling for missionaries. I'm always fighting with it. And so my question is, have you ever had that happen to you, and how did you deal with it when you knew it was the main calling? So and she follows up mission. So help us out here, Kimberly.
Yeah, I feel like Dave Speer, you kind of alluded to this earlier when you said you kept feeling, but then you kept fighting it, but yet you were crying. So how did you eventually land? You know, like
Right.
Kimberly.
Well, part of the story that I didn't tell is that I felt called to the ministry when I was 16 years old and fought that until after the age of 21, and just decided that's not what I wanted for my life. I had my plan for my life and I was going to do that. And, you know, I finally got to the end of me and just decided I was really sick of life my way. And God was very gracious, and the call was just there, very, very just tender, I guess, and just gracious to me. And once I started walking along that path, Kristen and I felt that we needed to really know specifically what God wanted us to do. And so we began to fast and pray. And it was in that atmosphere of seeking after God when the Lord spoke. It's not like it just came out of the blue. We were really asking the Lord for direction. But I guess one way that you would know if missions is your calling is that it just doesn't go away. Mission calling is not something you just wake up with one morning and then it goes away after a week, you know, because you go on to the next thing. It does not go away. It's something that it's just, you know, deep inside of you. And it's almost like, I guess I've had the thought since, you know, kind of looking back on that experience, sitting in that room with Dr. Carpenter talking about Mexico City, that God was in those moments when I was crying and I was weeping. It was like God was stirring up the destiny that he had prepared for me. Yeah. The Bible's pretty clear, and he, you know, that it says that he's prepared good things in advance for us to do. And I think that those were some of those things that God was stirring up and getting me to understand that he had something different and greater than what I was thinking at that, you know, at that time. So it won't go away. That's how you know.
That's good. That's powerful. Margot and Dave, do you guys have anything to add to that?
I would say it's worth exploring. So if there's that inward struggle and it won't go away, like David says, but then, you know, an overseas cross-cultural, you know, missions trip is a great way. And maybe it's something that you've already done. And I don't know if someone likes to read, like Kimberly would want to read. There's a book called The Missionary Call, Find Your Place in God's Plan for the World. That one's I wrote it down because I thought it might come up. M. David Sills. But
Here, say it again. What's it called?
It's called the Missionary Call, I think, or the Missions Call. I think it's the Missionary Call. Find your place in God's plan for the world. And the last name is Sills, of the author, M. David Sills. What I like about it is it kind of deals with, you may have a call, you're not sure what to do about it, and it really gives some good things to think about, a good direction to go.
Cool. Well, that's excellent. Thank you, guys.
There's a saying in Latin America, when you play with honey, it'll stick to you. So, el que juega con la miel, algo se le pega. And so the idea is I think you've got to take a step of faith and take a short trip, get out and expose somewhere outside this country, and you will see that you will catch a missions virus that won't go away. I've been reading in my time of devotions the calling of Moses and the excuses Moses gave God. I'm inadequate. I can't speak. I don't know how to do this. No one's going to believe me. Who is it that's sending me? And at the end, Moses just flat out told God, Lord, send someone else. And God angered. It said that God became angry with Moses. And the bottom line is, Moses, I'm calling you. This is God's thing. God doesn't make a mistake. God doesn't say, oh, shoot, I shouldn't have called that person, or I messed up. You know what? I'm going to reconsider. I'm not calling you anymore. No, God knows what he's doing.
Yes.
And God is saying, trust in me, because if I call you, I will guide you. Can you imagine if Moses didn't obey God, what he missed out on?
Wow.
I mean, it's incredible what God accomplished through Moses.
Wow.
And a lot of times we need to trust God, because you never know what's going to happen down the road. And in my life and in my missionary call, I can definitely say this, that my expectations were limited, and God has surpassed all my expectations, and I have been able to do things I've never would have dreamed of doing before. And because God knows, God has a plan, and he wants to use you.
Amen.
Yes.
That's awesome. And I would also just throw in there too, just that anything else, but including missions, God's big enough to shut the door if it's wrong for whatever reason. There are so many steps along the way, and we just have to trust that God's big enough that go for it. It's never wrong to become a missionary, in my opinion. I'm also speaking from very young experience, and I understand that. But just saying, I feel like I definitely went through that as a younger version of me, always being terrified to make the wrong decision. And eventually being called to missions from a young age, had to come to the understanding that if, like you said, God's faithful, if he's calling you, he's going to complete it. If not, it's like Proverbs 16:9. You just got to take steps, and he's going to guide you. And I love what you guys said. Like, it's just, it puts everything back on the Lord. It's his calling. He can do it. Go ahead.
I was going to say exactly. I mean, I so agree with what Dave was saying. Yeah. Because Moses was looking at himself as the source to
fulfill.
Yes, thank you. To make that calling and make what God's plan, to make it happen. Moses was not the source. Every time that Moses came up with an excuse, God answered with, I am. But Moses, I am. God is the supply. He's the one who makes it happen. I think that's a very important thing to take into account when you're thinking about your own missionary call. He just wants to work through you, and he's the source to make it all happen.
Yeah. Margot.
Amen.
Sorry, Margot.
I would like to mention, though, in the case of, sometimes it's couples that are struggling with call.
Yeah.
And our experiences, though, there are some that go, and it was the one that had the call, and the other said, but you have a call, I'll go with you. But we really, really encourage if one feels that calling and the other doesn't share that calling, it's better to just keep praying that God will confirm that call in your spouse, and that you would really have the unity in that calling. Because if not, it might seem okay now, but down the road, that person could, who wasn't even sure about it anyways, can really question, and that can affect a couple, and that can affect a family. So be in prayer, and God he is big enough to confirm that with both in the case of a couple. And and if it's a family, be sure the family is part of that process as well.
Right.
And your tocayo gives some great advice. Thank you. David Dominguez says, quick advice, world missions is vital, but U.S. as well. Start where you are. I love that. Start where you are. If you feel called to the Chinese people, start reaching people in Chinatown here in the U.S. or whatever people group it is. So thank you for that, David. And I think that's great advice. And, something that always stuck out about me about the Moses story as well was the fact that God was big enough in his call to, even though God got angry, and that is significant, God was big enough to handle Moses's concerns and Moses's fears and even Moses's desire to not want to. God didn't say, well, you don't want to, I'm choosing someone else.
Right.
He stuck with him. It's incredible, the call of God that can take us through. Sometimes we're so scared, and it's like, well, if God called you, you can't tell him no. And of course that's true, but just the amazing grace of God that he that he continues to pursue us, and his call is without repentance, as the old version says.
Right.
Thank you, John Masacha, and we'll get you, Margot. But thank you, John Masacha, says to Kimberly, check out engagemylife.org in Nicaragua. Awesome. Thank you, John. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Margot.
I wanted to add one more thing, because I saw this, someone shared it with a group today about some statistics. A survey they did with missionaries, and what kept them on the field. And it was the call. That was the first thing. It was not finances, was way down, like number 7. That was
amazing,
important in keeping them on the field. So I wanted to mention that.
Yeah. And I just have a quick follow-up question too, in regards to the family call. With the husband-wife thing, definitely, but then also with the other, if you have teenagers or even kids that are old enough to vocalize, I don't want to do this. How do you fit that into the whole family's called, but the kids don't feel called? Or maybe focus on the kids part of it, since, husband-wife relationship is definitely different.
Okay. Tocayo, is that all right if I jump in here?
Oh, I think that would be great.
I didn't take a breath, so let me.
I saw you doing like this, and you were getting ready, so I
you can see the chest.
Okay. This for me is so important. For those MKs out there, and for those future MKs, or for parents that are thinking about their children, the opportunities of being by learning 2 cultures, 2 languages, 2 worldviews opens the door for job placement, for excelling in different fields, for thinking outside the box. And it is, you have so much more advantage over kids that only stay in one place and go to one high school and go to one college. And I'm not saying that's wrong. What I'm saying is this world is opening up for children and for students to see and experience, and later on in their adult life, their job potential is enormous.
Yeah.
So it's the idea of, if you can't think of it as, oh, we're missing out. You're actually opening up doors for more opportunities than you will ever have. And of course, in job placement, if you know 2 languages, you become to the front of any opportunity out there in any field. So The thing is sometimes we look at it like, oh, this is such a difficult thing for our children to adjust. They're missing out on some of these neat things. They're missing out on the different, like Thanksgiving or the different Christmas parties and stuff like that. But I'll use the point of a Colombian family that went to Japan as missionaries with their kids, and their kids ended up learning Japanese. And the Colombian missionary dad was like, what do I do? I mean, it's like, this is difficult for them. And I encouraged them and I said, do you realize that the opportunities of knowing Spanish and Japanese will open you up for multinational companies, will open you up for so many opportunities across the world because of the globalization of industry. And now their kids are involved in, one's involved in an airline company, another one is a chef, and they just have excelled because they took on the challenge. It was hard at first, but now the benefits outweigh very much now in their adult life what the struggles were when they were growing up, adjusting to the culture.
Adam and Melissa say our kids are thriving, being involved in our ministry. Amazing. And Adam and Melissa are missionaries in
Dominican Republic.
That's what that flag is.
Dominican. Thank you.
Representing your team, Dave Speer.
Yeah, and I do want to, first of all, I want to apologize. Want to thank Paul Kazem for his comment. Paul Kazem is area director, him and Sandy in Mexico, and it's my fault. I'm trying to get him on, and he's watching. I sent him a link. It wasn't working, so I apologize. But thank you, Paul, for commenting. Paul's and Sandy, incredible leaders in Mexico. He says God also started preparing Moses years before he actually planned to use him as Israel's deliverer. The time you spend waiting for the fulfillment of what you believe to be your call is as important as the call himself. Incredible, Paul. Thank you so much for sharing that. And
there was one other comment that we wanted to make sure we read. It's awesome. It's from Francisco. And he says, so I'm at work listening to this in the locker room. A coworker walked in saying he has been away from church and was just thinking about God. And then I walk in and listen to this, quote unquote. God allows us to minister in our sphere of influence. God is good. I love it. So how cool is that? Because he's listening to this station right now. What are we, a radio? Facebook Live thing, and a co-worker I cannot speak. I am officially done. I have mom brain. I'm sorry.
A coworker, but Francisco, thank you so much for sharing that. And wow, I mean, just praise God. I mean, that's insane. Thank you, God, for your goodness to us. We don't want to go all night. Well, I rephrase that. We do want to go all night. This is amazing.
Respect your time.
We want to thank both of you guys for just taking the time, for your incredible wisdom, your experience, and for those who are watching, who might watch this on a replay, they might watch this video in the next few days. How can they contact you? How can they follow up for more information, more questions like this?
Right to Noah Lane.
Right.
In Spanish, that would be preferable.
Right. That's right.
Well, the website, lacworldmissions.org, can list the opportunities. They can also, if you have a question, if they can't answer it, the incredible staff with Nico and Leah and John and the if they can't answer it, they will find someone who will.
Yeah.
And we will work as a team. And if you are interested in a specific country or a specific type of ministry, we can connect you with the missionary that is on site doing this and get you more information.
Awesome. Be great.
And David Speer?
No, I agree with what Dave said. I was just going to say also, if you are interested in a specific country, You can also email Leah Musacchio, who runs the pipeline. That kind of is the large funnel that we use for all of the mission or all of the people who are interested in looking for opportunities. You can email Leah at lacpipeline@ag.org.
Okay. Noah's just getting up on the screen here. He's just typing it.
Okay.
That's great. That's awesome.
And it looks like Dwayne Martin, David, he beat you to it. He said, thanks, Dwayne. But LAC Pipeline, where we got that here?
ag.org.
At ag.org. Adam and Melissa said, oh my goodness, my computer's messing up here. But Adam and Melissa Tvet, and I apologize if I say that wrong.
Tweet.
They said I can give you cell phone numbers. That's awesome. Adam, Melissa, would you tell us your email and so they can
and cell phone number? Yes,
and cell phone number, right?
Here, do you want to show that real quick?
Which one?
The LAC World Missions.
Yeah, and
Surf.
John Musacchio, who is a strategic coordinator for the LAC. He says lacworldmissions.org/serve. You can see different opportunities there.
Before we end, just want to grab from you guys some ways that we can be actively praying for you as area directors, some specific needs that, maybe just for you personally. You guys are overseeing a lot of missionaries, but you guys are missionaries too. So how can we pray for you guys?
I'll start. Sorry, Margot. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, wisdom. Wisdom and stamina are two wonderful things.
Right.
You took mine.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. That seems pretty good. Anything else? Yeah, Dave. Speer.
Oh, I was just asking the same thing. Wisdom.
Okay.
There are so many things that kind of come across our desk, so to speak, that you just don't know what to do, and you just need wisdom from the Lord. And vision, like what is the Lord saying for different countries, different areas, and what is He up to? That's what we want to be about. So I think that those are two things that we could definitely use prayer for.
Absolutely. And I think it, just bears reminding, like from the beginning of the episode, you guys are just normal people that don't always have all the answers, and you need to hear from God, and right. Obviously He's placed you in a position of leadership, which is a huge responsibility. And, definitely, I don't want that job. So thank you guys for all that you're doing. We only hear good things about all of you. You guys are awesome people. We know you a little bit, and we're grateful to be part of your LAC team.
Yes.
Yeah, we can also pray that the LA Rams go undefeated this season. I mean, that's
and I think our time is up. So thank you.
Oh, no.
I'm throwing out prayer requests. I mean, yeah.
Well, wonderful. Hey, thank you everyone for joining us. Coffee with the Missionary. We had 2 missionaries, area directors with us. Go back, if you're just joining us, go back, watch the entire video. Shortly, we'll be having a podcast. So if you aren't able to watch videos, you can get the audio to all of these conversations. And we'll be shooting out a YouTube channel where you can watch them and watch little clips and share them with your church or anything like that. So blessings on all of you guys, and blessings on Paul Kazem and Paul Kazem. Paul, you can comment with something, any last words, and we'll put it on the screen there. But God bless you guys, and we look forward to what God's going to continue to do in and through you as area directors and in your areas of the LAC region.
Thank you, Noah and Melanie. You guys are awesome, and this is fun to be a part of this and see how this is involved in getting the community LAC Facebook community involved too. So keep up the great work. It's a lot of fun.
That was.
Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
Thanks a lot.
All right. All
Thanks.
right. God bless. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Bye-bye. Oh, slowly. Yeah. So we'll end the live broadcast, but you guys